And Counselor Stewart. You just have to open your camera cover.
My daughter in there. It is. That's what everyone said.
Hi, Adam.
Hey Nicole, how are you?
Good, you?
Good. Even better that my volume or audio is working.
Yep, it's working.
Perfect.
So Stewart, can you say hi? I'm talking, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yep, we can see you and hear you now.
Thank you. Sorry, my computer's not working. I had to do my iPad.
Um,
Hello, Counselor Stewart. I'm a bit sad you're not here tonight. I was hoping to get a bunny from you. Will I won't see you before Easter, will I?
Oh, you'll see me next meeting for sure.
Excellent. Please bring me a bunny.
I'll bring you a couple. Thank you. Welcome back, Beth.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of the Corporation of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 p.m. on March 26, 2025 in the Council Chambers. Roll call this evening. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Prenger.
Present.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
And I'd also like to acknowledge our staff members and a large contingent in the gallery. We must be serving lunch or something tonight, are we? Sorry. I'm sorry, I got to say something anyway. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibway Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, the unceded First Nation, and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibway Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda from council members this evening? Okay. Oh, Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, if I could just request that we defer agenda item 5.1F, sidewalk and signage bylaw review. There's been a request from the BIA for an opportunity to review it. Their meeting was the 18th and this agenda came out on the 20th. So there's been a request to defer this 1 month.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I don't think it needed to be a motion. I think it
It doesn't.
Does.
I would just wait till the time and then you can.
yeah. Can we afford that conversation at that time? But I appreciate the heads up. Okay. I'd ask this time for any member of council to disclose any pecuniary interest they have either now or as it arises in the meeting and the general nature thereof. Adoption of minutes from regular and special meetings. We need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held March 12, 2025 be adopted as printed. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Matter for discussion. We have this evening a report from our Director of Community Services regarding the STEP and Facilities Assessment Report. And we also have Ken Logenberg from BM Ross here this evening as well. And just to begin this, we will need a mover and seconder that recommendation one, that council received the STEP assessment report as presented by representatives from BM Ross, and that staff be directed to incorporate the recommendations from the STEP assessment report into departmental business plans and budget submissions. And recommendation 2 is that council receive the conditions assessment report for facilities as presented by representatives from BM Ross, and further that staff be directed to incorporate the assessment information for facilities into updates to the municipal asset management plan, and further that staff be directed to incorporate the recommendations from the conditions assessment report for facilities into departmental business plans and budget submissions. Moved by councillors Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Blackwell. Director, thank you for the work of you and your staff that has gone into this report. And would you like to lead off our discussion this evening?
Yes, thank you. And through you, it's a pleasure to welcome Ken to the council chambers. He's no stranger to the municipality. We've been working with Ken and his team for 12 months now in bringing these reports to fruition. We recognize that there's still more work to do on them, but this certainly provides us a snapshot of some of the conditions of our facilities, as well as the steps that we have around our beach access points. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Ken. Oh, he's already there. I don't have eyes on the back of my head. It's a great report that they provided with to us, and I hope you've got a few questions for him as well. Thank you.
Ian and Mr. Logdenberg, welcome to our chamber. The microphone's yours.
I'll test. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Council and staff for the opportunity to come speak tonight. Yeah, so the report, as Janie's provided, the building and stairway condition assessment report, which we completed in March. A lot of the work took place last year, but we kind of cleaned it up, and then we got a chance to speak tonight about it. So in the agenda, I've split up into the two parts. First part is talking about the building condition assessment. So I'll go through the methodology, the summary of the observations and our recommendations. Then I'll talk about the stairway assessment, going through the scope of work, some background information, photos, and showing some of the sites, and then general observation and comments pertaining to the stairway assessment. So with the building condition assessment, we completed a review of 15 facilities within the municipality. Now, as per OREG 588-17, the municipalities they're required to include the facilities within their asset management plan. So the purpose of this building review was to help identify facility repair needs, assign general condition ratings to the facilities, and to provide information for the asset management plan. This information may also be helpful with trying to determine long-term planning decisions. The assessment process. So we prepared an updated inventory of all the buildings and reviewed the documented features pertaining to the buildings, completed visual inspections of the buildings and the components, looking for safety and structural concerns. We took photos and components to help illustrate the features and the conditions of the components. We assigned the condition ratings to the components. We did an estimate to address any repair needs that were identified and provided suggested timelines for them. Then we identified areas of additional investigation, and sometimes you might find things that it looks suspicious and we should do some additional investigation, but our reviews were initially just what we could see visual, so we weren't doing any destructive testing, so sometimes that might be a recommendation out of that. And then we assigned facility condition index scores, and I'll provide an explanation of what that is in a further slide. And we prepared the summary report, documented the results within the assessment. This next slide, we provide it because it helps to kind of explain how when we look at the components within the building, we try to help explain how we might prioritize or how we might think about what things should be repaired first within the facilities. We've got the three boxes on the left-hand side, and we provided scores for each of those. So with an individual component, we would take a look at it. And for example, with the performance grade, that'd be looking at, is that component sort of up to your standards, up to typical standards? Is it performing well? Is it suitable for this application? If, for example, you had a heating system that's maybe it's still using oil or it's not energy efficient or something like that, it would have a poorer performance grade. But if it appears generally suitable for its application, then the performance grade would be acceptable or be a better score sort of thing. The next box down below, probability of failure, that's basically a condition score. So each asset would be assigned a condition score. And then the bottom one, it's a consequence of failure score. So if that component were to fail, how much of a consequence would that be for the users and for the municipality themselves? So we take those three scores, and if you put them together, and as the way we've illustrated there, the top two, they generally represent what level of service you're providing for the users. The two down below, they generally represent how much risk there is with that component to fail. And then if you further put those together, it helps to give you a bit of a priority score. It's just a theoretical priority score, but you can use that to help decide timelines, how important it is to get it fixed. And we generally just use that in the field as the inspector, as he's reviewing, to decide what kind of timeline he wants to assign or he thinks he should assign for the repair of that component if there's any needs. Okay, facility condition index, just to explain how that is calculated and what it is. It's basically considered like a condition score for the building. And the way you calculate that is you take your total replacement cost, then you subtract from that the amount of needs the repair needs that are appropriate for that building. And then you take that, and you divide it by the replacement cost. It's just a real simple way to, and if you think of it, 100% is a building with no needs, 60% is a building with an awful lot of needs. So this is a scoring system that's typically used, but I want to caution that try not to take too much out of that number, because you can have a building that might have that needs the roof replaced, a fairly expensive component, but the rest of the building is all in good condition. So it can have quite an impact on the score sometimes. Similarly, you might have another facility with expensive equipment. And I'll take, for example, Tiverton Arena. You've got your cooling system and the flooring system in there for the ice in the arena. Because of that expense, it appears to look like it's a condition score of poor, but it's really one big component. It represents most of the cost. And once that would be fixed, then it'd be jump back up to almost a good condition. So it's a scoring factor that's commonly used. And the last, I guess there's one more thing I was going to explain there. Sometimes you have older buildings that might be in poorer condition, but you look at the building, for example, the flooring's in poor condition, but depending upon what that building's being used for, you might say that's acceptable. We can accept that, or we're not going to worry about painting it because we're not using it for certain things. So you may not identify it as a need, as a repair that has to be done because it's acceptable, but you know it's an older building that's not necessarily in good condition. So you just have to be careful with using that facility index score to make too many decisions. This next slide shows the age of your facilities, and of the 15 that we reviewed, it's small to read the font at the bottom there. I apologize for that, but a couple things I'll just point out. All of the facilities are older than 20 years old. 12 of them are older than 30 years old. So, you don't have a lot of newer facilities, and facilities, you just think about the age of them. It depends on how well you maintain them, but people often think that 100 years is about as long a typical life. Often they'll last longer if they're well maintained, but that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at your facilities and your future asset management plan. FCI, and I explained this scoring a couple slides ago. So we had 5 buildings that were in the poor category. There was 2 that were in the fair category, and the remainder were in the good category with the FCI score. This is a list of the needs, and there was some additional information within the body of the report, but this gives an idea of the needs, and it was all broken down in there. But for the presentation today, we've just provided a summary of the information, and it lists the facilities, the age of the building, the total needs that were identified, and the FCI score that was assigned for that facility. We came up with a total replacement cost of all the facilities that we reviewed of $71 million, and there was needs that amounted to $5.3 million. So general comments about the buildings. As I was just explaining, there's total replacement cost was about $71 million. There was only 3 facilities that are less than 30 years old. There was $5.1 million capital needs identified, which represents 7.5% of the replacement cost of all those facilities. This includes about $3 million to replace the concrete floors and refrigeration lines within the 2 arenas. The above needs does not necessarily include an allowance for repairs that are considered maintenance type work, like painting or kind of low things that your staff would probably do themselves. Those type of things, those aren't capital, so we wouldn't include them in this list. And replacement of some components beyond their service life was not included if it's assumed the existing is acceptable. So that's like I was saying, if you have a facility and maybe it's a little older, but it's acceptable for its use, we would not identify it necessarily as a replacement need. So do you want to ask questions about that before I jump onto the stairs, or do we continue through the stairs presentation?
No, thank you for that query. I think if any council members have, some questions about the facilities assessment report, this would be an appropriate time before we get too far down the trail. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. On page 14, there's a reference that basically says if maintenance is, if typically things that are addressed through the maintenance budget, which you just said, that cost to replace was outside of the capital needs. But one of the questions I had when I was looking at the Davidson Center, I saw lots of expenses for the arena, but I didn't see anything for the pool. And we know that the pool's not in great shape. So am I to assume that's under maintenance budget? Or was it just excluded from this part of the report? Because for me, that's part of the building, so I would expect to see it there.
If you mind answering, I'm just gonna.
I can speak to that through you. I believe it was in January, we had a presentation by Demeter Engineering that they're specialists when it comes to aquatic and ice plants, and they provided some recommendations in that report. I'd be happy to circulate that again. And those will, okay, yeah, they were identified there.
Yeah, I guess I was just looking at the total cost because in the same report, there was a reference that said you shouldn't be spending more than 3% annually. So with the 7.5 million, that was I forget what the percentage was. It was not 3% that we were spending. And then when we removed the arena costs, it brought us down to about 2%. I don't know whether it's normal to remove those arena costs, but that 7.5% is kind of misleading, like the 7.5 million, because I've got a whole chunk of cost that's not represented. So I would have liked to have seen that when looking at a holistic view of my facilities, regardless of who did that other assessment.
Further questions? Oh, Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I'm still here. Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, I have a little bit of a situation. You were talking, Ken, about consequences of failure. Do we currently in staff have a preventative maintenance program, an active preventative maintenance program? And I have another question after that. Thank you.
When you're asking if they have a preventative maintenance program, I'm assuming you're talking about checking your roofs for leakage and stuff like that. I know they've had some different people doing reviews of the roof assessments on a regular, well, I know they did it recently, and I think it was done quite a few years ago. So I don't know if I can answer if they have their own internal preventative maintenance program, because that's, you know, I was more doing assessment.
Thank you. I'm a little bit confused, and maybe Jane can help us out here. We just did an assessment on the Tiverton Arena. I believe it was GEI that did it, and there was no mention about the concrete floor refrigeration needed to be replaced because we're doing the boards, and they were saying it was in good shape, but now your report's saying it needs to be replaced. I'm a little bit confused. Why are two consulting companies so different?
You want me to answer?
Thank you, and through you. The Demeter report also recommended at some point that floor would need replaced. It didn't necessarily say it would never need replaced. It just indicated that it didn't need to be replaced at this point. That report that we provided in January also provided a costing for the notion of replacing the boards, which we're proceeding with, but also the future costing for when we do that floor, that the boards can be removed and then put back in. So the reports are pretty close to alignment in regards to the replacement of that flooring. It's not, both of them aren't saying it needs to be done today, but we can expect at some point in the near future, they will need to be replaced.
If I may just add a
Just
comment.
a follow-up, please. You know, I'd like to know the exact date because, you know, it needs to be replaced in the future. That could be 0, that could be 25 years. The other question I have is that we only talk about 15 facilities and we have a lot more facilities. And I think that we really need to, as a council, really start looking at these facilities and looking at this, this assessment whole program. Because a lot of these facilities, we're going to have to make some tough choices, and we need to do that sooner than later, and then not even bother with the maintenance or even keeping them long term. The other thing is that we looked at the assessment of the facilities. Is Roxanne on the line? Does the insurance company look at the assessment of our facilities too?
Through you, we don't necessarily provide this document to them. However, the insurer does do annual inspections, and they would, determine what they want to inspect at any given time. So they do have inspections for our facilities, but not necessarily to this extent in terms of what was reviewed by the engineers.
Thank you, Roxanne. Could I get a copy of that assessment from the insurance company? All council, thank you.
Okay, thank you for those. Let's move on to the steps assessment, please.
Sure. So the stairway condition assessment, so we were asked to take a look at this, and it was last fall when we did our reviews for that. Just slide. So with the condition assessment, there's 17 stairway locations providing beach access that were reviewed. Most of these were constructed by local residents on municipal property to provide convenient locations for them to access the beach. The stairways were reviewed for general conformance with applicable codes and structural adequacy. Individual reports were created for each of the stairways for our review. They included things like a description of the stairway for that site, some photos, comments regarding the general compliance with the applicable codes, condition scores for many of the components, and recommendations. The stairways were reviewed for conformance with the Accessibility of Ontario and Disabilities Act, AODA, and the Ontario Building Code standards. Most of these sites should be defined as beach access routes or recreational trails as defined by the AODA and not as stairways. And when you see some pictures, you'll see what I mean with that. They are not required to be brought up to AODA standards until they are reconstructed. Stairways should be structurally sound and in accordance with the Ontario Building Code and brought up in other aspects of the code when they're being reconstructed. And when I'm saying they should be like that, that's what the code requirements say you should do. This map gives a overview of most of the stair locations. There's a few more to the north, but if I put them on this map, you'd just stretch it out too much. You couldn't see the locations. But it gives you an idea that there's some of them are spread out a little bit, but then there's clusters of them in a few locations as you go along the beach shoreline. Our general observations with our review, none of the stairs have the slip restraint treads that are supposed to be on top of the stairways. Risers are not closed in, so you have your risers, your toe can slip through between the treads. There's no tactile plates at the top and the bottom of each stairway, no color contrasting on the nosings. The handrails are not suitably shaped or sized and configured as per the code. In addition, the pathways approaching the stairs do not comply with the standards for a recreational trail. There's a lot of them are just kind of little pathways through the trees. Many of these do not look like stairways, but appear as an access path with either concrete steps or stones placed as steps, and there's no handrail or a flimsy handrail to allow them to get down to the beach. These photos that I provided here give you a bit of an illustration of some of them. And with the ones on the top, I'm suggesting you could try to call them an access path, but you wouldn't want to call them a stairway because they're obviously not close to what we would call sort of for stairs. The bottom two are a couple other examples that are closer to what you would call look more like a stairway, and they mostly constructed with pressure treated wood. And like I said, there's numerous things that if they were to be brought up to the AODA standards, they should be added to the stairway when they're reconstructed. There's a couple more in here. I've shown a couple example of things that we identified as safety concerns that should be addressed. The tread, for example, is sunk down on the one side and the one footing starting to undermine. The one step on the front is on a lean, so it could potentially be a slip hazard or where somebody might step and fall off. So those are a few of the things that we identified that should be repaired, even if you're not going to replace it at this time. So our general comments, so there's some structural repairs were recommended in the report to be addressed for safety concerns. With some of the stairs, we have recommended replacement instead of trying to do the repairs. There's an awful lot of repairs to them, so we said, don't necessarily repair, make plans when you're time to replace them. However, since some of the stairs are in close proximity to each other, we would recommend the idea of installing one good set of stairs in that location and signage to direct pedestrians towards that, to use that stairs instead of multiple locations that are close to each other. With some locations, we describe them as an access path instead of a stairway. And when upgrading these, they should be made in compliance with the beach access path or recreational trail standards. That's my presentation for the stairways. So if there's some questions regarding those.
Yeah, so thank you for that. One thing of note that most, if not all of these steps were not built by the municipality. They were privately established and inherited by the municipality because they're on municipal property. So the option to maintain or consolidate or stuff at this point pretty much lies within the municipal purview. And I'm trying to say that it's not as though we built shoddy steps to begin with. That's not what was going on. And we're trying to make a deteriorating situation into something better than it is now. So, Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, through you. One of the things that I was going to mention, I had the distinct pleasure of growing up on Saugeen Street as a kid, and there used to be a fair number of municipally built staircases that have since been removed. I think there was one left in the report, perhaps 4 and 5, and there used to be 6 or 7, maybe more, between Lower Saugeen and Upper Saugeen. When we're looking at consolidating or replacing, are we looking at what used to be there in addition to what currently remains, or are we only looking at what currently remains, with some that had been placed there after the Armor Stone to maintain access to the beach and aren't there anymore and have kind of been replaced with these homemade paths?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the assessment didn't include steps that were previously there. Obviously, there was nothing to inspect because there was nothing there. Yeah, so moving forward, and it kind of falls in part and parcel too with our beach maintenance plan that we're finalizing too, and reviewing all of the access points. So part of staff's process with reviewing the contents that we've received here, and the one thing I want to say is it's not all doom and gloom. This is a great opportunity that we have all of these items identified now and documented, and so staff will be reviewing where we see where pedestrians travel on a frequent basis. We are even doing trail counting areas in some places where we know that our numbers are higher than other places. And so we'll start to look at areas where we can corral, I'll say, patrons to a central spot of accessing the beach as opposed to having multiple beach access points.
Councillor Stanoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So have you been capturing this data for a while, like in the assessment of the low, medium, high? Just because I know personally trying to access the beach in Inverhero, you can be multiple streets over just trying to find a place to park once summer hits. So there's a part of me in my mental model that's saying, did these extra access ways spring up because of people parking further and further along roadways and such? So I totally hear the like trying to concentrate, because I'm all about fiscal accountability. I hate to say those words out loud, but I am. I understand it, but I wouldn't mind understanding like if any rationale there from those number counts, because that's my one concern is as people spread out, then you're asking them to walk further along a walkway, like a roadway, trying to get to an access point.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we've only recently started with trail counters and strategic areas within the municipality, and each year we add additional ones. I think we've got 3 out there now. We've got 2 more that we will be putting out, and we'll provide those numbers when appropriate to council. They do provide us an opportunity to assess how people are accessing our beaches and our trails. Like it or not, human nature is to take the shortest route. And so we'll also be considering that on where we decide that where we feel it's appropriate for the best beach access points to be at.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through Mayor. Thanks for coming tonight. I didn't have the benefit of growing up on Saugeen Street, but I've had the pleasure of living on Saugeen for the last 15 years. To follow up on Councillor Steinhoff's grays, I couldn't expect that you would know this, but for instance, like location 9 in the set between 3 and 13 is by far the highest traffic spot there. The main reason being is you come down on my section of Saugeen Street, it's the one spot where you essentially can handle quite a number of cars off the side of the road. So in the, like I said, you couldn't have known this, but if the assessment had been done in the summer and you come down there, it's even a frequent place now for people to come down and watch the sunsets if the snow allows it. And it had probably the last remaining municipally constructed set of staircases there. And to follow up on Councillor Blackwell's, your methodology is to count like a set of a stairway up and a stairway down as two separate staircases. So probably not much more than 5 years ago, there were a total of 12 municipally or town constructed staircases along this stretch. So I feel it doesn't really capture the picture. If you were to read this report and you didn't know it, you'd assume that what we have down there is a complete hodgepodge of resident constructed pathways up over the rocks. I admit I created one myself, but it's missing this bigger picture of the role that the town and the municipality played over the course of time and actions that it took that led us to where we are today. So I will be voting not to receive that report, and I will be attempting to lobby my councillors the same, that it get returned for a revision to incorporate some of these things so that it could stand alone by itself as a picture of beach access along the section from access point 3 to 13. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, this seems to be a report that we need to do under Ontario Regulation 588/17. I'm not familiar with that regulation. Maybe Roxanne or Jane, is this a report that we have to do for the AMP every 5 years?
So through you, we are required to do a facility condition assessments and condition assessments of our assets. It doesn't have to take the form necessarily of an external consultant to come in and do the review. We have previously done internal reviews based on our own evaluation models. So as long as we are doing condition assessments, it just helps to inform the asset management plan and helps to provide more accurate information.
So follow-up question, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind a copy of some of those assessments by the staff. And this might be sensitive, but you know me in reports and financial. What was the cost of this report by BM Ross to the taxpayers?
Is there an estimate, or I'm not sure that we've been invoiced that number yet, but
Yeah, I'm guessing about 15,000, something like that.
Thank
okay. Just a question in here, as we consider this report, is the construction of any access stairways along any of our beach points limited by what this report says, or does it just assess the stairs there and develop a strategy to provide safe access in those points? Like it doesn't minimize the opportunity to build other stairways in other places, does it?
Thank you for the question, and through you. No, it does not. And if I may add, the scope of this project was merely to assess our existing steps. Staff will take that content and review it and analyze it and ensure that it's part of our 5-10 capital year forecast. If council wishes some more content to be received, we're happy to go back as staff to do that, but it was not part of the scope through BM Ross.
Councillor Blackwell, please. Oh, just a minute. Sorry, Councillor Williams first. We'll come back to you, Councillor Blackwell.
Thanks through you. If a lot of the steps weren't put there by the municipality, but they're on municipal property, I just wanted to maybe learn a bit more about what like our liability or our accountability is for the structures in the current state. And I'm just thinking, you know, have they been assumed as part of our maintenance program because we know they're there and they're on our property, or what that looks like?
Great question, and through you. We have obtained from our insurance provider a template for signage that we will be installing on all of the access points. And it is part of our annual inspection program to have those steps reviewed annually, and that is new to our inspection program.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. I was going to agree with the scope of the report and assessing what exists there now. What I'm perhaps wondering about is when there are plans to construct new or to consolidate or to determine where we're going to place them, whether if it's possible to look back as well as what was there before, why they were eventually removed, whether it was they were not used or aging or not maintained, whatever, and use some of that historical analysis to also help us plan moving forward instead of just this report when we move, like when we think about what we want to build going forward and the ones that may have been there previously.
Okay, so not that we're telling you to go away. Don't go anywhere. Just stay there. But I'd like to afford council the opportunity to speak to any of the their thoughts regarding these reports or the value and how we can use them. Like Councillor Hinchberger's expressed his thoughts. Now it's time to have a conversation about whether we support the motions or not. Okay, Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
I'm going backwards from the trails. And I apologize for that, because to Councillor Hinchberger's point about having some additional details so that these reports stand alone, I think that, you know, our end of term's coming up soon. We have no idea who's going to be in these chairs. And for me, a wholesome report is really important so that new individuals are brought up to speed right away without having to have that institutional knowledge. We've already done the hard work. But I did have one follow-up question. There's line items included for the arenas, but we had a separate consultant report on that. So is there a subset of arena costs also not included in this subset? Because I know that there was refurbishment budgets proposed by the DEI engineering group when they did that review. So I just immediately noticed, it was immediately on the top of my mind when reading it, that the pool was missing. So are there additional financials there that are not being considered in this particular report because of the DEI consulting?
Other than the pool component, the rest of the facilities should align very closely with each other. And strategically, we had it set up that we were going to bring BM Ross in first to do their presentation to capture all of the buildings and then bring DEI. Because budget was pushed around to several different dates, we decided to bring DEI in because of the importance of getting that in front of council. So I apologize if it feels a little convoluted right now, because we had a plan and it didn't come to place, but other than the pool, and that's why we brought DEI in specifically for the pool capacity and moving that project forward as well.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So thank you for the report. It's been insightful. The question that's being asked of us is whether or not we accept the recommendations. And I know when we look at the STEP assessment, the recommendations that we direct staff to incorporate the recommendations in the STEP assessment in their departmental business plan. So a couple of things spring to mind with regards to that. One, Councillor Williams touched upon is that we are aware of the steps that have been constructed by other individuals, and as such that we have some liability to bear on that. And noting the conditions of some of those steps, I just wonder, I don't see any timeframes, but I presume that that's part of what staff will be taking back to look at in terms of what becomes higher priority to address. presumably. Is that right? Can I ask that, I guess, as a first part of the question?
So through you, not sure if I understand the question totally. There are some higher priorities for sure when we look at our steps. Obviously, the one, and I think you've all seen that, the one at the lighthouse is our highest priority. We as staff acknowledge that, and we'll be incorporating that into our business plan as a recommendation for 2026 to have those rebuilt.
If I could, Mayor, through you, follow up on a couple of points of that. I also noted that you were saying there was some signage that's going to be placed around, I presume, all of the steps that are of some concern. Is that the idea behind it?
Through you, that's correct. The signage will be going up. Right now, they are being used based on our counters. So we wanted to get the report in front of council first, and we're proceeding with getting those signs up. And as I indicated, we do have a template for those signs that has been provided through our insurance provider.
And I guess just on the point, following on from Councillor Hinchberger's point about perhaps a little bit more narrative and context behind it, I'd be interested, Director, from your perspective of whether or not that's a large ask or whether that's something that can be relatively readily incorporated into this report.
Our steps going forward? Is that what you're asking, or?
No, I think Councillor Hinchberger had made a point about the importance of having sort of narrative and context about how the municipality had constructed a number of steps, and just understanding, I guess, a larger and greater overview, and whether that's a large ask in any amendments to this report, or whether that's something that can be readily done without derailing us, for lack of a better word.
Through you, if you're asking for more content to be included in this, we're probably looking at several months out. We are quite busy right now with our capital projects, with RFPs and tenders just going out. So if you're looking for that immediately, it won't happen immediately, but we can certainly work on that probably into Q3, Q4 to get that back in front of council if that's council's direction.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director. Just one further question. What does that mean in terms of timeframe? Like when you have this, if this report is received tonight, and presumably that allows staff to look at placing that into their business plan. I think my question is, irrespective of whether there's further narrative effectively amending this, can that work still go ahead, or would you hold off until that report is received? Is my question clear?
The work as far as a risk assessment or the risk for the existing conditions, we'll be proceeding with that anyway, because that is of high risk. If you want additional narrative to be included as part of that, our work plans don't accommodate that right now, but we can certainly work towards that based on council's direction.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have maybe two kind of related things. One is, this is a report from BM Ross, so it wouldn't be something that our staff would be able to edit or add to without, right? Like you would either have to go back to BM Ross or create your own report that would be an amendment or an addition to it.
Thank you. Through you, we wouldn't alter BM Ross's report. We could certainly add some components to it as appendix to it, but we wouldn't alter any of the content that they've provided us.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much, and through you, Mayor. You were asking about reports. I'm going to sort of generalize on the reports itself. We seem to be getting multiple reports every term. I think I've seen this report over and over and over again, facilities. I think we have to be careful as a council. Every 4 years, we seem to have the same consultants coming in and giving us reports. One of the problems with the reports is that there usually is a huge cost. The maintenance costs over $3 million, the replacement costs over $70 million. We seem to have, and if you go into anybody's filing room, you'll see report after report after report. I know they're important, but we don't seem to ever get things completed in a timely fashion. And just having the report and seeing the report doesn't mean anything to me unless we have an action and business plan right after it. And if we don't, then it's just a report that sits in the filing cabinet and gets dust. Sorry.
Which would, I'm won't put words in your mouth, but it's, if you receive the report, then that's what you do. You start planning to accommodate the recommendations made in it. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I just maybe looking for confirmation or clarification on if we receive the report, what that means, and perhaps just understanding, Councillor Hinchberger, what the concern is about receiving it. It's not clear to me, sorry.
Through you, Mayor. So if that was a direct question for me, I think when you're receiving the report, there's a difference between approving something when it contains recommendations or actions, and this one is receiving it. I think when you're receiving, at least from my perspective anyways, you're acknowledging somewhat about the quality of the information in the report. And that's the distinction for me. I'm speaking as myself.
No, you cannot, but I can when I'm done talking.
Okay.
The challenge with not receiving the report is and I'm not the lawyer here, but it puts us in a position where we have heard the information and we're choosing not to do anything about it. And if something on the downside happens, we knew about it and we chose not to do anything about it because we didn't go down that direction. Two questions, and then we'll go to the vote. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Through you, Chair. I'm just going to ask for clarification on your comment there, only because I thought I just heard Jane say that we would still be acting on the critical risks that have been identified regardless of what outcome tonight's vote is. I'm confused now. So if I could have clarity on the act of receiving and whether or not that means that we were seen as being negligible in our actions, because I understood we were taking immediate action based on what we were knowledgeable of.
Through you, thank you for the question. Through our due diligence, we will be putting up signs. And we do that for anything where we recognize that there is a risk, whether or not we've had a engineer review it or not. In the sake of the steps, I'll use as an example. We had requests from the public to repair some of the steps. We didn't even know how many steps we had out there from our perspective. We didn't have a documentation of where they were located. It was the first step for us to take in getting them assessed. We also asked, as part of the scope of the work, to give us a condition assessment on each one of them so that we're not experts when it comes to steps. Yes, we can go out and fix them, but the integrity of some of those steps was questionable amongst staff. We now have that document. And so as we continue to provide plans for council to make informed decisions as we go through our business plans each year, you have a strong document that indicates areas that need to be improved, as opposed to staff coming in saying, hey, we think that the steps next to the lighthouse look in bad shape. You have that documentation now that shows the condition of those steps. In regards to the building conditions assessment, the previous one was done in 2006. Therefore, it's dated. And certainly, again, we as staff are not experts when it comes to some of those facilities. We know that we try and keep the doors open on a regular basis, and we have some issues with that. The conditions assessment provides another document for council to make those informed decisions as we work through our business plans.
Thanks, through you. A question too around the clarity, just for next steps. If council receives this report or accepts receipt of this report, is there a way through the direction around incorporating the recommendations into department business plans and budget submissions to add the additional information that Councillor Hinchberger is looking for to have incorporated kind of as we move forward, if that makes sense?
Certainly, if directed by council, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so we're going to go to the voting part of this. And with council's concurrence, I would like to suggest that we split this motion apart so that we vote on recommendation 1, which is receiving the step assessment and directing to incorporate the recommendations into business plans. And then we will vote on recommendation 2, which is receiving the conditions assessment report incorporated into a municipal asset management and into departmental business plans. So I'm going to ask the mover and seconder if that is a recommendation that you could support to do that. It was Andrea and Councillor Blackwell. Okay. So we have first motion on the floor is that council receive the step assessment report as presented by representatives from BM Ross, and that staff be directed to incorporate the recommendations from that report into departmental business plans and budget submissions. All in favor of that motion? Councillor Stewart, is your hand up or not? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Not up.
So that is carried. And recommendation number 2 is that council receive the conditions assessment report for facilities as presented by BM Ross, and the staff be directed to incorporate that information into the municipal asset management plan and incorporate the recommendations into departmental business plans. All in favor of that motion?
Not in favor.
And that was carried. And that is with the understanding that we have directed staff as well to broaden the scope of, I'm sorry, can I use you to craft some words just to express the extent of the work that you were hoping we would get regarding any access steps? Okay. At the right time, come back in an expedient sort of time, come back and say, we need some direction on what the step assessment looks like moving forward. Okay, thank you very much. Boardwalk service material. We need a mover and seconder that council approve. So I'm going to, there's 2 options here that have been provided. One that council approves stamped concrete as a preferred surface for the boardwalk, patterned, decorative, beautiful, or that council approve composite surfacing for the boardwalk, decorative, beautiful, the same thing. So I'm arbitrarily going to choose one, and we will have a debate and vote on that. So that council approve composite surfacing for the boardwalk with concrete at parking entrances. We need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Hinchberger and Kavanaugh. Discussion. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was just looking at the pros and cons that had been provided, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit it out loud, but I use ChatGPT. And I kind of asked ChatGPT based on the hottest temperature we had in Kincardine, which I also used ChatGPT to find. And then the coolest temperature that we had hit, so our hottest temperature was 39 degrees Celsius. Coldest was minus 19.5. I won't bore you with the other details, although we did hit that high in 2011, so it's been a little while. But given the winter that we've had and the thawing, expansion, contraction, and the lead to cracking, there was some pros and cons that surprised me. Like composite was actually seen as the strongest for not being hot, but it's listed as a con in here that it's hot. So based on like my random check of the pros and cons, I wasn't fully convinced that we should be negating consideration of replacing with wood. Just based on the pros and cons and the price margins and years of support based on ChatGPT. I'm being very honest. I was using it as a kind of a military experiment, but it did give me very strong pros and cons. I gave it as a box. I said, what happens if I use wood? What happens if I use pressurized wood? What happens if I use concrete? What happens if I use pressed concrete that looks prettier, and what happens if I use composite? And then I asked it some questions like, what is the average square footage and what are the average maintenance costs? So I know we got down to 2, but I wasn't 100% sure that wood should have been ruled out just by my fun with ChatGPT, and I'm sorry to throw this at you in a meeting, but I guess for me, based on like how hot things could become, where I was landing was that probably composite was my best choice, but I actually wasn't considered that pressurized wood shouldn't have been ruled out as an option. So I thought I'd throw it out and ask what analysis was done to better understand it, because I'm sure you did something much bigger and better than what I did in the means of time.
Thank you for the question, and through you. There's a lot of things we look at when we start to design boardwalks, and more particularly it's with sand migration and the environment where we're putting in. And there's beaches where wood makes total sense, absolutely total sense to put a wood boardwalk in. And also not only because of sand migration, but also the capability of shifting it as required for various reasons, high water levels, lots of reasons. We certainly looked at other municipalities and what they've put in their boardwalk, and we looked specifically for what would work best in Kincardine. Staff are happy to put, at this point, any material council desires to move this forward. We are deeply concerned that this will not be done in time for this fall. We have a very small window of opportunity to get this installed without impacting our season. Summer more specifically, and we know that our season is far past the Labor Day weekend as well. And if we have a winter like we did this past year, we're still in it. So we will work with whatever scope council directs us to. Our importance is more getting this project moving forward at this point.
Having said that, the recommendation is here because after the wood investigation, I think our community services team has said the sand migration and the pressure is not from the top side, but from the down underside of the make wood, though an option, it is not one of the stronger options. I appreciate your comments too. I know where you're coming from. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you to you, Mayor. I'll use the lighthouse as a comparison, and I'm not going to say in any ways that the boardwalk is as iconic to the waterfront or the downtown area as the lighthouse, but it has become a bit of what I would say is part of the culture of what you associate with Kincardine. So my preference is here, yet the lighthouse, we're not putting the same paint that was put on it 67 years ago, or the same lights, candles that were inside to tell ships where to go and where not to go. So we've upgraded a little bit. So for me, the compromise is a bit concrete around the parking areas and a modern version of a boardwalk in the remaining places. That's sort of my perspective on it.
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. I think when I was thinking about this boardwalk, I would say I think it's a relatively iconic visual. It's on some of my favorite postcards. So this has been a challenge for me to kind of navigate through because I'm very nostalgic and love the look of a wood boardwalk. But I can also understand some of the negatives for that. Some of the positives for me of a concrete surface are obviously increased accessibility, potential year-round usage, which right now we struggle with. I have seen some concrete boardwalks. Just to call it a boardwalk, I guess, is a bit of a misnomer, but they can look quite nice. I have also been around some builds, some commercial and some home builds with composite, and I think they've looked really nice at the beginning. I think they've faded. They've become much more slippery. I find them quite hot. And so although there's a part of me that wants the more nostalgic look of a composite, I think there's some real drawbacks from it from a longevity perspective, from being able to use it year round, that if I'm thinking more so, how do I want this part of our community to be used going forward. The nostalgic part of me wants wood. The more fiscally responsible and accessible focused part of me has recognized that I think of the two options, I would support concrete made to look more like a wood boardwalk. I think that you would actually find that that would give us a longer, better lifespan and a more year-round usage, while being able to clear it more easily, having a longer lifespan. All of those elements that I think we could benefit from. I would also have some concerns with composite, with the plastic degrading and what that might do to our waterfront. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but certainly as something that's plastic, I would have some reservations perhaps about that. Not that concrete's that much better, but.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. Similar to Councillor Signoff-Gray, I did a little bit of research, but I ended up just chatting with different people in the community to see kind of what they thought. And a lot of the people I spoke with, and it's certainly not like a representative sample by any means, but just some kind of sense I got was that, you know, the wood versus composite match like the natural landscape a little bit better in the area and the feel that we want the boardwalk to have. But my main concern with concrete is that it is more of a permanent solution, which I don't necessarily think is the best decision when we talk about the environment that we're putting it in, take that into consideration, sand migration and things like that. Just our earlier conversation around, you know, the steps and, you know, the steps have changed because access points have changed. And I think about that with the boardwalk, and will it look the same? Will the landscape around that look the same in 40 years or however long, you know, concrete lasts? And I mean, are we now talking about removing this concrete to rebuild a boardwalk? And so I just think that the best solution is to really kind of keep within the aesthetics that we currently have, but also to think about, you know, a more permanent solution might not actually be the best solution for the waterfront.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. You know, I live on the water, guys, and really, you know, how you get there, either by grass, concrete, wood shavings, or whatever, really, you're going to the beach. That's the whole point, the sandy beach, and the point is to go swimming, and the point is to watch sunsets. Let's have a little bit of common sense here, and, you know, let's build a concrete boardwalk. I think it makes sense. We're moving it a little bit east, so it won't have as much sand migration as it used to. But also, I'd really like to take a look at the cost. I had a driveway, a concrete driveway, and the guy offered me a stamped concrete driveway. It was 50% greater cost than a regular sidewalk, boardwalk, or driveway. Have we ever taken a look? Stamped concrete versus regular sidewalk concrete, because that's one I prefer. And if we go to tender, and if we decide to go to concrete, I like the tender to have both materials. It really wouldn't cost you too much. But I think that having a stamped concrete takes longer, and it's probably about 30 to 40% more costly.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess I struggle with this decision a little bit because the discussion around composite is way more nuanced than just composite versus concrete. Composite depends on the product. There's a very large range of qualities. A super high-end one where we're going to spend a ton of money is going to last a way longer, not fade as much, not warp, et cetera, et cetera. Some have recycled materials mixed in, some are hollow, some are solid. They're all going to fare better or worse in the weather, and we haven't been told what kind of composite or anything like that we'd be looking at or what we can afford. Some have recycled wood fibers mixed in, and some of them are completely fire retardant and some aren't. So I mean, there's lots of things to consider here, and I just I don't know what the cost of what we really need compared to the cheapest one is, and how that compares to the concrete. Personally, I love the look and I love the feel of composite compared to concrete, but I'm just still kind of guessing at what we should really do here.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just want to compliment the knowledge base of some of the people around the table. Stelina, you actually captured one of ChatGPT's #1 difficulties with using concrete. And I'm just being honest with you. That's how permanent it is. Once you've said it, you've said it. There's no moving away from that. But the other major detractor is because concrete is so set, it basically said if you weren't doing reinforced concrete with like rebar, the likelihood of cracking from the thaw, freeze. And when I'd read that about the thaw and freeze, I immediately thought about Bruce Street. Bruce Street's a disaster right now. And they're like, obviously, we're fixing that disaster. But my understanding is that the reason that happened with the breakup of the road is the thaw freeze pattern. So I would be curious who around us with the same weather patterns has used stamped concrete and how that holds up. And to Councillor Pranger's point, actually, one of the positives they saw with composite is that it is considered eco-friendly because you can use recycled materials. So you're repurposing those materials. And it is important what quality you use. But when you use the right quality, it's supposed to be less hot to the surface and lots of wonderful properties. So I am struggling with this, but I don't know that I feel great about concrete, but I would like to understand if you looked at anywhere else where they did use concrete, because it's the freeze thaw has me very concerned, because once you have the cracking, you have an uneven surface, and then you have the problem of dealing with it and fixing that uneven surface.
Come check out my driveway any day you like.
Mine too.
Yeah. Okay, last question for, oh, do you have an answer? Do you want to?
Thank you. There was a few questions in there. Own Sound has recently put it in their Marina district. I'm not calling it the right thing, but in that area, the River District has recently done that. The one thing I did want to add too is, and I think I have said this before, one of the biggest complaints when I came was a condition of the boardwalk. And it was the fact that the boards kept coming up. We as staff sweep the boardwalk once a week is our minimum level of service on the boardwalk. Probably should be done more, but that's our minimum level of service. We don't have capacity based on our numbers right now within staff to go back and continually replace some of those pieces of wood. About 2 years ago, we did. We spent 2 days down there, pushed a lot of things off our business plan in order to get that done. I'm not trying to persuade you anyway, but we look at it from a maintenance perspective as well. Also, it's difficult to compare concrete to Bruce Ave. Bruce Ave gets a lot of salt on it. There's maintenance on there. We don't provide that level of service of maintenance on the sidewalk down at Station Beach. Not saying that we would never clear the snow off there, but it's a different level of service that we provide there. And so we look at it from a maintenance perspective for the most part. But in saying that, if council proceeds with, if we're directed to have wood, if we're directed to have the composite, which we have seen examples, with speaking with the engineer, absolutely for the first number of years, it's going to be no problem, maintenance free. Eventually, it's going to start to deteriorate, and we need to be prepared for that. And love the look of both. Could live with both, and I understand it's a difficult decision for you to make because you're leaving a lasting legacy here. So I just wanted to provide that little bit of background. When we as staffs look at these projects, we look at the long term of maintenance as well as the aesthetics.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, a final question for me is, it says in the report that the design was looked at by our accessibility committee. Was the choice between materials also proposed to them? And if so, what was their preference?
I actually was not at that meeting, I must admit. I'd have to go back and take a look at the minutes. The engineer presented at that meeting, and I'm assuming she presented everything that she had heard from the engagement processes as well as the two different materials.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. It was presented. I can't recall whether whether it was composite or concrete and whether we went into any depth. I have to say, though, that one of my concerns with composite is the accessibility portion of it. And I know that you have listed that as one of the perhaps weaker points of the composite. So But to answer Councillor Backwell's question, I can't recall whether we went into any depth about what the materials would be for that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Who moved and seconded this? Councillor Hinchberger and Kavanaugh, that council approved composite surfacing for the boardwalk with concrete at parking entrances. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4 got defeated. So the alternative option is council approves stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk that resembles wooden boardwalk. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Kavanaugh, Deputy Mayor Clark. We've had the discussion, you either know or you don't know, one or the other.
No, we're done. This is right. These are the two here.
These were the two options that were presented to council. Okay, so the motion on the floor is that council approves stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk, which resembles a wooden boardwalk. All in favor of that motion?
I'm in favor.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm in favor.
5. Motion carried. There we go.
Move on.
So we have next interest of expression of interest for 708 Queen Street. Once again, through our community service department, we need a mover and seconder. The council direct staff to develop an expression of interest to explore potential uses for the former Kincardine Fire Station located at 708 Queen Street, Kincardine. Moved by councillors Hinchberger and Williams. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Victoria Park construction drawings. We need a mover and seconder. The council direct staff. There is no motion. Okay, so I'm going to offer some words here that might help direct the conversation, if not the motion itself. So council had proposed that we put a new shine on Victoria Park. It had come from a recommendation based on staff's concern regarding the physical accessibility and safety of the gazebo. And the initial recommendation was that we decommission the gazebo, establish a production stage, broadly speaking, at the west end of Victoria Park. From there, the conversation morphed into, well, what do we do with the fountain? What do we do with the cannons? What do we do with the park? What do we do with the trees? And it got beyond reasonable in cost and reimagining, and council kind of just let it sit and didn't direct staff to do anything. At this point, I would suggest that we go back to the fundamental, the base reason for doing this, which is to decommission the gazebo and to bring back a design or whatever it is to make the production stage of the west end. Yes, the fountain needs refurbishing. Yes, the cannons need refurbishing. Yes, the pathway needs some work done. But I think that at this point, if council made the initial decision to start there, that it's a conversation that continues on both next year and the year after that, and maybe the year after that to finish the whole project. But I'm wondering if there is concurrence or support from council. Let's start where we started initially and move this project forward ahead, even if it's a little bit. And we'll be able to develop the totality of the fountain, cannons, pathway, and all those sorts of things in a subsequent budget. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. You must be reading my notes through you, Mayor, because that's exactly what I said. We got carried away with this thing. The original thing last year was the pavilion, whether it should stand or not stand. So I fully agree. If you want to put a motion together with exactly what your verbiage was, I'd second it immediately.
Okay, I will. At least we'll have a mover and seconder. We know, and that's the blessing of motions is you can amend them. So I would like to move that we direct staff to decommission the gazebo and is there budget this year to build the new production stage, or is it just the drawings that will just come? So, so it would be to decommission the stage or the gazebo and present drawings for a new production stage in Victoria Park.
In 2006.
And it,
the destruction would happen in 2005. The concept drawings would be done in 2006. I'd like to put dates around this. Thank you.
So it would be, so we'll present the motion based on, we will have discussion to see how it fits into the community because so that the destruction of the conceptual plans for decommissioning the gazebo and the construction of the production stage, the drawings will be presented this year for completion in 2026.
I second that motion.
Okay, discussion. Director, please.
Thank you. The pavilion itself is still earmarked for special events for this year. So I wouldn't recommend that we decommission it this year, that it remains on site and that staff will work with the public in getting some concept drawings together that, you know, that there's a number of opportunities that we can look at themes and present that back to council and then consideration for construction in 2026 based on our business plan.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
So thank you through you. So the timeline I'm envisioning is the gazebo remains, the new stage is built in 2026, and at that time, the existing gazebo would be removed. In terms of what I was just hearing there about some community consultation, I think we've had extensive community consultations on this. I don't know what else perhaps you're envisioning, but I think at this point, we could look at one of the prefab performance stages. There's many out there that would fit within within the existing footprint of the park that would meet the needs that were identified in the existing consultation. There's some other elements, but perhaps we should deal with this motion first and then discuss the other elements. Okay, so this is just a motion on the performance stage at this point.
This is the motion that deals with the Victoria Park construction drawings. It encompasses 2025, 2026 in its totality. We haven't included anything about fountain, cannons, pathways, anything. It's just the gazebo and stage at this point. So that's, help me out, Director.
If I may, yes, through you, council approved $60,000 to do construction drawings this year, as well as repair the cannons and the fountain, which we will be proceeding. So with the remaining funds, we were going to complete the drawings for the full park. However, if I may, the consultation last year, I get my years mixed up now, last year did not look at the actual design of the pavilion. It was for the entire footprint for the park and did not get into those details for the pavilion. If under council's direction, if you would just like staff to proceed with determining the design, we're happy to do that as well for the pavilion.
So just to clarify, the fountain and the cannons will be addressed this year. The gazebo will be demolished and the just wait. The construction and the demolition would happen in 2026 based on the drawings and the concept that's going to come forward in 2025. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. So, just based on that, then, the 2025 budget, we approved the 30,000 for general contracting would be for the cannon and the fountain. And then the additional 30,000 that we had approved for engineering and consulting for a broader plan would then be available for construction drawings of the gazebo and with some left over, maybe.
Until we go to tender, I don't know the cost of that.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. One of the things that I'm struggling with is you can't not do community consultation. I know that we need to do it and I agree with that. My problem is that so often when I'm talking to people in the public, it doesn't necessarily align with the outcomes of the community consultation. And if I'm being really honest right now, I would say that I was completely unaware of most issues until I ran for council and spent all the time that I have really trying to acquaint myself with what's going on and represent like the public concern. But an overwhelming number of people that I've spoke to kind of are wondering why we want to change the overall layout anyways. Like, why does the whole layout have to change? Why couldn't we just replace what we have there? And I know not everyone's aligned with it, but I hate to say this, and maybe I'm not allowed to do this. But like, I see a whole public gallery there. I would love to have everyone put their hands up that wants, I'm just.
Councillor no, don't go there.
Okay.
Thank you. The democracy happens in this end of the council chamber. So the municipality circulates opportunity for people to engage in the conversations. They afford multiple opportunities for anybody who wants to come. So we can't go on anything other than what we hear. So that is the challenge, because your neighbor will tell you something different, which is not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, a couple of questions. First of all, about public engagement. We're lucky to get 10% to public engage in anything nowadays. Looking at our surveys. A couple of things is that these cannon and fountain, when we talked about that, you know, the wheels and the fountain itself, we're talking about going down to the states, Jane, and actually getting cost. I would prohibit that right now with a 36% or a 25% increase. Are you still trying to source those materials from the USA for the cannon and for the fountain?
Through you, we have the wheels already for the cannon. They just need to be installed. We're still looking at assessing how we can get the fountain fixed. And obviously we would like to have it with a company that's as closest to us as possible. There are limited companies that provide that level of service for fixing those fountains. So we have not landed on any specific company as of yet.
If I'd all recommend follow up, I would prefer to be Canadian at all possible. And what did the wheels, we needed what, 2 wheels for the cannon. What did they cost us, please?
Perhaps SCAF can circulate that information, Councillor. We'll move on from that question at this point. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. So one of my questions, I know your motion right now is related specifically to the stages, gazebo and stage. One of my things is this year's budget, we approved repairing the fountain, which would mean the fountain remains in its existing location. On the concept drawings that were presented, the fountain had been moved to the north side, the east side of the park. one of my concerns is the current layout of the path in the hybrid proposed design would not connect with where the fountain is now. So one of the motions that I had discussed at budget was that part of our direction should also, in my opinion, should be that we retain a very similar, if not the same layout for the path as it is now, so that it intersects with the fountain versus using the hybrid design, which looks great from above, but doesn't necessarily mimic the actual way that people engage and walk through the park on a kind of day-to-day basis, as well as being able to connect directly with one of the defining features, which is the fountain that people enjoy sitting near.
So at this point, there is no conversation in this motion about changing pathways or anything. That will, it has opportunity to come at a future date, like in 2026 or 2027 or 2028, where we're not, with this motion intending to alter or refurbish or do anything to the pathways. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just to follow up on that, part of the motion is also, we approved $30,000 to do construction-ready documents for the park. So if we're not talking about the pathway, I'm not sure entirely what that would be part of the park. The other concern I would have is a key driver of this project at the very beginning was accessibility. And if we are going to be doing substantial work to create new performance plaza and repair quite a bit of the existing park, I feel it would be a missed opportunity to also not incorporate at least one upgraded pathway to ensure accessibility in our primary park in the center of town.
Point of order, Mayor, we're getting away from the topic of the motion. You need to pull everyone back, please.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you through you. I just want to confirm with the motion on the table, would we be making a decision today on the location of the gazebo?
When the conceptual drawings would come back, there would be a proposed location for not a gazebo, but a performance platform of some sort that we haven't got a design. Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you through you, Chair. I think just to follow up on that, in order to do conceptual drawings, they need to know where it is because it would be shaped and designed differently depending on its location. So staff would need direction as to the desired location.
It's my understanding the desired location was the west end of the Victoria Park. Was that your question, Councillor Williams? Sort of. Okay. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. Sorry, this is just a procedural question. So I had submitted a motion prior to tonight's meeting and prior to your motion going on the floor. Is that, how does that get handled now? Is my motion just dead on arrival?
So you were asked to just, if you were going to present a motion, to provide it to us. So you would need to move and second, get a mover and a seconder for that motion to put it on the table.
So at this point, we have a motion on the floor that directs staff to, as per the budget, work on the fountain to restore that, restore the cannons, and to provide drawings which include the decommissioning of the gazebo and a proposed location on the west end of Victoria Park with a detailed drawing of what the production platform would look like. Councillor Prenger.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think that might be jumping ahead a couple steps. If before we get to detailed finalized drawings, we should probably have a couple concepts presented to us and we can choose from one. And then we can have the drawings done, because that would be a waste of time if none of us liked the drawings.
Director, would you like to comment on that request? How that would be tendered or put out to the market?
Historically, what I would do is I would get input from the public and then present it to council on the preferred note one. But if I'm hearing that council would prefer to select the performance area, then I would not go to the public and get input from them again. So I could bring 2 or 3 different recommendations back to council, to concept drawings for council to decide, if that's what you're asking. And I think that's what I heard.
Thank you, through chair. Just follow up. I wasn't suggesting that we don't do any public consultation. I was just suggesting that as part of that process, that we not just be given finalized drawings without any kind of public consultation or input from council. We'd need some kind of options. Like I don't think it's appropriate to have, this is what we think you should do, and there's no other option presented to us, because then we would just be back at the drawing board if we didn't agree with it.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I have a similar view just around the options, because right now we're suggesting the location of the performance platform is somewhere based on drawings that we're not actually going to realize the entire vision of the drawings. And so perhaps that's not the best location if we have the park as is, perhaps where it is now is. And so I concur with the idea of options, even on location would help, because as of right now, from what I understand, if we approve this motion, we're not approving this whole plan with a whole revisioning of the paths. So perhaps that's not the best location.
So you're hearing some flexibility in the options about placement and design of the production stage. Is council comfortable with the motion and the direction we've given staff at this point? All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Birchwood Park Playgrounds. We need a mover and seconder. The council approve the consolidation of North Cedar Lane and Parkwood Road parks, and the council directs staff to conduct community engagement for the purposes of selecting the preferred features within the park. Moved by councillors Stewart and Mayor Craig. Okay. Discussion. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I've had tremendous amount of phone calls and emails and stop in the park sort of type of discussions about this. I just want to calm down the community for now. This is basically something we approved in our budget for 70,000. People are considering that we're going to sell a park. We're not going to use a park. This is just basically throwing up proposals and discussions. We are going to have some major community engagement, and then we'll figure out what we want to do with the 2 parks. So please don't jump to conclusions. Allow our team and our staff and myself and any other councillors to be involved. We'll be down at the parks to discuss it, and we will find out what works for everyone. So it'll be a win-win. Thank you.
Reports say you're going to put it up for sale. There is no conversation.
I didn't hear that. Please repeat it.
There was a question from the gallery, and I was asking them to refrain their comments. That's all. Councillor Kavanaugh, you had a question.
Thank you very much. And this is to our staff, through you, Chair. My understanding and sort of interpretation of what was proposed during budget time runs quite contrary to what was pitched, as what Councillor Stewart just said. I am under the impression that this was a proposal for council to actively decree one park to be closed, another park to be sort of consolidated into, and even potentially the decision to be made with that surplus, in air quotes, park. It's something I opposed then, and I know Councillor Pranger was with me, and part of the condition for us passing that budget in February was that this be withdrawn and pushed to today where we can have a more fulsome discussion about it. As it stands, and I will give staff an opportunity to comment on it, I feel that this shouldn't be something that goes through. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. I'll try to build off of Councillor Kavanaugh's here. I kind of look at this as two aspects. We have 2 parks and 2 playgrounds right now. If we separate the 2 of them here, the proposal, as I see it, is to consolidate the playground aspect of the park at one location, Kinhuron. Anything else related to what to do with the other park was something that council would decide. Now, that being said, I have some concerns that if you're going to consolidate the playgrounds into one better playground, that the Kinhuron playground is better than the Parkwood location. And that is where I think that if there is going to be ultimately a choice about consolidating the playgrounds into one location, that's something that I think you should hear some input from the people and the families and users in that area would be affected by. So I'm at the end, I'm at the same spot as far as I would not be voting in favor of this as written, but I get there by a different route.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the report. I share some of the concerns, really echoing them that there really needs, in my view, having read this, I had some concerns with the lack of engagement with the community, really concerning which, if any, what we're looking at in terms of consolidating and where. I know how important open spaces, green spaces, parks are to families. Often it's a deciding factor as to where they choose to live and raise their families. So for me, I'm grateful for the information, but I certainly would welcome further input if we were looking at making any decisive decisions going forward. So I'm not quite there tonight with this report.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you through you, Chair. I'm going to echo some of the similar statements as my fellow councillors. And also, we had some really well-written emails that came into us highlighting some of the concerns around the assumptions. And one of the things I would note is we're talking about doing public consultation about where we're going to, once we've decided on a location, but not including the public in the discussion of what location, which if you think chicken and egg, I think that's a thing. And I would like to think that we're riveting, but we have a whole galley full of folks here. I know that there's a split of 2 items that I'm thinking about that have been sitting for 1.4 hours. So clearly you're going to have the engagement you're looking for. They're obviously wanting to have their views. I don't know whether it's appropriate, but given we're looking for community consultation, would there be any opportunity for us to listen to some of the folks while they're here?
No.
I'm serious. They're
No.
here.
No. No.
Okay, fair. I apologize. There is a process and I'm out of process. I'm not used to seeing this many people show up. And so I think it speaks to the concerns of the community. And I didn't get one email that was written in a hostile fashion. I have to say, there was strong arguments. I have received emails before from the public that are not for the faint of heart, but I felt like this public consultation was done very respectfully, at least with the content that I received. Just throwing it out there.
No. I'm sorry, no.
How do you?
No. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you through you. I share similar sentiments with all of my colleagues. I definitely got the sense that it seems like there's a lack of engagement to make the decision on which part to close. If any, my question is related to the budget. We did approve 70,000 for replacement of equipment. Is there an opportunity to proceed with replacing equipment at one park, keeping the other equipment in place and active and continuing until we make a decision on whether or not to replace that equipment in the future or consolidate or whatever else? Can we at least proceed with replacement of one, keep the other one active?
that there are always lots of opportunities, but I think hearing the wishes of council at this point, let's have the conversation. I appreciate staff's perspective, acknowledging the state of the equipment there. And I, for one, am not opposed to consolidating the park into one spot. But I think the conversation with the community is valuable about which one it goes to and how it's developed and those sorts of things. So I'm going to suggest that we defer this motion. I know that there is a time requirement. I'm going to ask staff for some sort of guidance, whether this is a 1 month conversation, a 2 month conversation. Is the like, are we under some time constraints? Because should the present equipment be removed because of safety concerns, or what was the time frame that you had proposed for construction of this proposed playground at this point?
Thank you for the question. As you know, we are also replacing some additional equipment within the community, and through economies of scale, we were hoping to group those together to get some better savings. I'll be honest with you. We can certainly pause this one until we go through the process that council directs us to. Absolutely. I will say, though, the park that was called the Lake Huron Highlands does have a considerable amount of ash trees on it right now that we are removing from a hazard assessment process. And so there will be some removal of trees that needs to occur within the very near future.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, there was two sort of recommendations that council approved the consolidation of North Cedar Lane and Parkwood Road parks. That one probably tonight should be deferred completely for now. But, you know, we need to direct the staff to conduct community engagements for the purpose of these two parks. And I think that's what you're saying, but it's not in a motion. Is that just going to be your recommendation to them? Or should we be making a formal announcement? Because we have a lot of people in the gallery that are not quite happy with this report right now.
Councillor Stewart, I think the deferral would be contingent upon providing staff appropriate time to develop some sort of engagement strategy, and whether that's a community open house or direct mail or whatever it is, to afford opportunities to ask questions and get answers. So I'm not even sure what sort of time frame you would like to have to accomplish that engagement process, Director?
Thank you. And through you, if council would allow us at least 2 months in order to gather some content, only because we're dealing with a lot of RFPs and tenders for other projects right now. It's a very busy time of the year. I would hope within 2 months we could provide some content back.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so the second meeting in May would be the 21st of May. Is that an appropriate length of time to defer this discussion? That's a couple of months.
Yeah, staff will endeavor to get the report back to council by then.
The 28th is the board meeting.
Okay, the 28th perhaps.
14th. 14th. Yeah.
Okay, it'll be the 28th. So the recommendation would be to defer it, but we will accept some other. Okay, we're not quite there yet. So Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I have kind of twofold question for our director. Sorry, I'm a little confused as to the report, the content of the report that you're asking for. Are you asking for a report that tells us what kind of community engagement they want to do, or they're going to do the engagement, they're going to report back to us on it, and we're going to have like clear options coming from that?
At the meeting on the 28th, there will be a report on the outcome of the community engagement so that we will be able to move ahead with some sort of direction to staff regarding what this playground may or may not look like and where or where not it might be.
Knowing that now, can I ask my other question?
Sure.
Thank you. Director, you had said that you were hoping to align this with other parks that are work being done on other parks in the area. Can you just give me a bit more detail on the timeline for those? And what I'm not clear on which ones you're talking about and what's happening there.
Certainly, and through your mayor. So we have the other park that was approved through budget at Scotts Point. So we would have been coordinating some contractor services. Playground contractors generally come from afar. So having them here at the same time is convenient for them, and that usually benefits us budget-wise. It's not to say that it couldn't be aligned with other projects in the future, but that was the one we were aiming for this time around. Yeah, sorry. So that project, we are still working through that. There will be, again, community engagement as we do with playgrounds as part of that project. We're hoping to do the install of that one in the fall.
Councillor Steinoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So based on that comment, just as a clarifier, because I was actually going to ask if it was like, if we know we're going to need park equipment, so your comment about being able to save money by doing a bulk order as opposed to not, like, I just thought maybe there'd be a way to move forward at least with ordering the equipment, because I feel like the equipment is standard in format and easily enough to install. So that was my question, but it sounds like the savings is actually by having the contracting group here physically, not the purchase of the equipment. I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a mover and seconder that we defer this discussion till May 28, when we will receive the director's report regarding community engagement and a path forward. Moved by Councillors Steinoff, Gray, and Williams. Any further discussion? Councillor Blackwell, please. Oh, all in favor? That's carried then. Sidewalk and signage bylaw review. Oh.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, if this time I could make a motion to defer this agenda item 1 month.
And I second that motion, Bill.
Just the deferral.
Based on timing for the
Just the
BIA.
timeline of BIA to make some comments and review the policy before we make it official.
All in favor? And that carried. Kincard Municipal Airport Review. We need a mover and seconder that council receive report operations 2025-08 for information purposes. Moved by Councillors Williams and Hinchberger. Welcome, Manager Extraordinaire. Speak to us.
Thanks for having me, Mayor. Through you. Yep. Before council is the airport review report as requested. There's a lot of information in there regarding options for the airport and how it's currently operated. Ultimately, this is for information purposes, but we're seeking further direction from council on next steps. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. And
Councillor Steinoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do have a few questions, but I'm going to ask a question. Just, I know that we have a delegation coming next week. I'm just wondering should we not be waiting for the delegation before providing direction on the airport? Like, I don't want to slow down the question period by doing a motion that changes the motion on the table, because then we can't ask those questions. But I wouldn't mind from our CIO's perspective, like knowing that we have a delegation that's bringing information that builds upon the staff report. Should we be moving the decision into that meeting with the delegation?
So there is no decision being made tonight about anything?
Well, when I hear provide direction implies some kind of guidance. So I was just asking the question because I don't know what's going to be in the delegation. I don't know what I don't know.
So whatever was in the report, it was stated that there was no particular direction, that there was conversation going on with stakeholders, that there was going to be information provided about a whole bunch of options. And all we're doing tonight is saying, yeah, thanks for giving us the report. And we look, as part of your concern, we look forward to delegations and information from all sorts of sources to make good decisions regarding this. So I'll go to Rory and then I'll come back to you for a bunch of questions.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I would like to thank staff for taking steps in this report. It is a significant expenditure in our operational budget every year. It costs our taxpayers a negative $200,000 in change to keep the airport running. One thing that I do have a question or a request that perhaps someone will second in a request for a brief staff report or even just an email message follow-up is I would like to know the number of orange flights that are attempted to the airport and the number of orange flights that successfully transport a patient from our airfield via plane to the other larger centers. Is that a reasonable request?
It should be a number that's easily accessible. Absolutely. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, you get your first two questions. Yeah. Well, there's another hand went up, so you get two.
Okay. Thank you through you, Chair. Just one thing that I would like to qualify. I understand that with the Phoenix contract ending, and the fact that staff have been able to take over that function, and I understand there's some cooperation happening with Goderich Airport. Is there a long-term opportunity? You briefly mentioned in the report that there might be an opportunity. I don't know whether that means staff level sharing between Goderich and our own staff, but there might be economies that could be collected there that would, I would assume, help with a 201K deficit to bring that down to a more reasonable amount, especially while we wait to hear about the orange flights, because obviously safety's of paramount concern, right? So, between that and some of the partnership exploration that we discussed, like that you discussed, I was curious how feasible you thought it was to do that, to achieve that.
Through you, Mayor. Good question, Councillor Steinhoff. Discussions with Goderich were more on the temporary basis, in between transition of where we're heading with the airport. Anything further than that would definitely have to be a further conversation with them to see if there's opportunity to, if that's your kind of question, we'd have to dive deeper into that conversation. But certainly could do that if that was council's desire.
So to follow up on that, I know in the report it said between 2016 and 2024, we had invested $2.4 million into the airport. And a lot of that was through, I believe, the wind turbine funding. And obviously that helped with some of the orange efforts. But one of the things it had talked about is one of the issues outside of medevac was that we didn't have the 4,085 feet allowable for the primary runway. So I was curious because it talked about how that negated some of our commercial capabilities, although I know we have some planes that come in and out that are not just single passenger into our airport. So I was just wondering if you could help me understand what the likelihood of that extra space would be for increasing. If we had a runway that was longer, I didn't know how likely it would be to actually increase that air traffic. And then I wasn't sure, it sounded like there was no mechanism for expanding the runway, but I wanted to understand that because that would be part of the way my thought process went through this.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor, I don't know the direct answer to your question as far as how many planes would come in. I guess if you build it, they will come type thing. I may direct this one to Director Weiser as far as the length of the runway and what was explored previously for if it was feasible with the bluff there.
So I see we have Director Weiser on online with us too, and he is indicating he'd like to comment. So Director, if you would like to fill in some gaps here, please.
Yeah, thanks. And through you, Mayor Craig. So a couple points. One, I'll touch on related to the immediate question. Realistically, the reality of extension of the runway, you are going to have to extend the bluff out significantly, and or move the provincial highway. So you're into substantial timelines and substantial costs. So to be quite frank, I don't think it's financially viable. So we're stuck with what we have from a length limitations aspect, and you know what planes can and can't land based on that length of runway. And just to an earlier comment or question, or I guess comment really, from Councillor Steinhoff Gray. Certainly at this point this evening, the intent of the report and with the delegation forthcoming, we did note in the consultation section that our recommendation to council is that you consider, or that you don't consider, you know, any actions really from receiving this report tonight until after you receive that delegation. It gives that group an opportunity to speak. It gives you an opportunity to absorb the information that Corey and the team have put together here. So it was just really from an information standpoint that we wanted you to receive this tonight and then hear from the delegates.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have 2 questions. I don't have as many as Councillor Steinhoff Gray. I'm still easing back in. But my first question would be, you mentioned that you were in kind of a temporary situation right now with staff from Goderich, that right now we're able to fill the gap of an ASP provider. What is a realistic timeframe that that's feasible for? Like, when would council need to start making some decisions? Is there one right now, or are we just kind of going along as long as we can?
Yeah, and through you, Mayor, good question, Councillor Blackwell. We are looking at more of a pilot program right now just to see what it's like staffing it. Good. Yeah, it is more of a pilot program to see what a trial. Thank you, Councillor Ginsberger. To see what we would require for staff, our own staff, to maintain the compliance there, and you know, ultimately with the KEG group to look at, you know, is this something that owners of the hangars and air traffic are comfortable with, and overall see the benefit of reducing the cost for the reduced basically level of service at the airport.
Thank you. Through you, just to follow up, the other piece of information I'd like is, I know Councillor Kavanaugh asked about the specific numbers of Orange, but I'd like to understand a little bit more about just more broadly the perspective of Orange on the need for an airport, all of the elements that they may need in terms of fixed wing / like just a bit of a better sense of their need for that kind of a asset in our community in order to provide for medical. The other piece that I didn't necessarily see in the report was from an emergency management perspective, seeing it as an asset, and whether our own emergency management or Bruce County's emergency management has that within their plans at all, and how potential decisions regarding the airport might be impacted.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the report, Corey. One of the things that made me realize is that I've been overly focused over the past couple of years on just the operating deficit of the situation. And so you jarred me back into a little reality to look at, I never really considered the runways, honestly. I don't know why I didn't, but it sent a bit of a bigger chill down my spine. And just maybe just to offer some help to those who might be coming with a delegation, just from this one councillor's perspective. If I didn't feel strongly before that the status quo is not acceptable and something substantial needs to change, I am more strongly feeling that way now. Thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Sorry, I have to lower my hand through you. I only have one question, but I do have one comment, and it's probably not going to go over very well. But I'm a little surprised, guys, that we couldn't come to an agreement and it only gave us 30 days to really figure out. It was less than 30 days. I don't know what happened, but we wanted to do a feasibility study on the airport. We all agreed to through capital, but I'm trying to figure out, and you don't have to answer this, why did we not know about this until 30 days and now we're running an airport? The only question I have for tonight is, I don't know if Roxanne is still on the line, but there's a huge liability of operating an airport that the ASP used to pay for, because that was part of his contract. He used to have an insurance policy for his own liability. Has our insurance company been notified, and what's this going to increase our sort of payments?
So through you, the municipality has always paid for the insurance liability at the airport. It's not the airport service provider that paid for that. And we recently just completed a renewal for our insurance at the airport. We would have to contact them to find out if there's any impact on the policy. I'm not sure if there is at this point.
And just a follow up, Roxana, is it a difference with having an ASP versus us running it?
Through you, I can't answer that question right now, especially if the scope of the services provided at the airport is reduced. I would have to communicate all of that information to the insurer to find out what the impact would be.
Thank you. Could you report back to us directly? Thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Based on the discussion that was happening, and I apologize to everyone because I forgot my glasses today, so I'm doing the best I can. When I did a quick search, Bayshore Broadcasting is the resource, but it sounds like in the past year, King Carter Municipality Airport has facilitated 29 orange ambulance flights. Based on the installation of the GPS approach system to assist in medical teams. I don't know whether that means they're actually landing at King Carter Airport, but if they are using the GPS coordinates from some resource through that airport, I'd like to differentiate on it. Because one of the other things that I noticed, again, doing a really quick search, is there's a number of municipalities that have had adverse impact to the medevac services based on closing the public airports. Buttonville Airport was listed, that was closed in November 30th, 2023, and disrupted ambulance operations in York Region. We also had the closure of Lake Simcoe Regional Airport in May of 2020, which had raised significant concerns about impact on medevac operations. So I would like to understand that, and I thank Rory for bringing that question to my attention, because I started asking. I hate to say it. I've been on the system just looking to see those little details. The other thing that I didn't know about that I would love more information about is apparently the airport, King Carter Airport, hosted a C-130 Hercules search and rescue plane in August of 2020. So and it was for conducting training exercises and demonstrating its capabilities. So I would be curious what kind of activities we also participate in that might be impacted by this decision, because I didn't even know that's something we participated in. So if I could get some of those details, Adam, I would appreciate it. Can I do that through a report back to council? Perfect. Done.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that we receive the report for information. All in favor? And that was carried. 5-minute bio break.
I
I know. My son's doing this weird thing, straight to voicemail, and I don't know how to change it. No, Oh, I'm just saying. Yeah. I've been waiting to talk to them. That's all. Say hi. Nice. Say hi. Oh, yeah. I did have a one.
Okay, so we're ready to go again?
And then you would go back
Then
to
you go-
back to the next side.
All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda is the 2025 maintenance gravel contract. We need a mover and seconder. The council awards the 2025 granular A gravel tender to Johnson Brothers Bothwell Limited for the tendered amount of $304,786.47, including non-recoverable HST, moved by councillors Blackwell and Hinchberger, all in favor. That's carried. Environmental Services Compliance Report. It's for information. An information report is Manager O'Leary online.
I am Mayor Craig.
Evening, Mr. O'Leary. Any information to relay or just open for questions?
Just open for questions tonight.
Any from council members? Councillor Steinoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I had a couple of questions, but one of the first questions I wanted to ask is, I was already aware of some of the non-compliances because we talked about them already, so I'm not going to drag that out. But with the sodium and fluoride levels, so it used to have to be tested for ARMO every 5 years, but because of the concentration now being above half maximum acceptable concentration, we now have to test every 3 months. Am I right in that read of that? And is there anywhere else where we're testing every 3 months? If I am right, that's assuming.
Through you, Mayor Craig. So I believe the Armo site is at a half mac for sodium, but I don't believe the testing requirements are every 3 months, but I can follow up on that. I believe they have to be completed twice a year, but I can follow up on that for sure.
It might have just been a misread on my part. I was reading it later at night, so I would fully expect that it could have been a misfire on mine. And the only other question that I had, and again, it has nothing to do with a non-compliance, but I was interested in the fact that Armo and to a lesser degree Underwood have, like, for their lead concentration at 0.56 and 0.25, whereas everywhere else seems to be like 0.02 to 9. So it struck me as, I know it's below the limit, but I was curious why it's so much higher, because I would have really expected Underwood to be on the same source water as Tiverton. So like, I didn't understand. I thought I'd ask.
Sure, and through you, Mayor Craig. A lot of that could be things that are similar to like fitting related or the age of the infrastructure. So it is possible, that the infrastructure, whether it be in a household, when you're doing household lead testing, could have old solder or galvanized, that contributes to that. It can also just be general overall reaction with, chlorinated water on some fittings that could be older style or may have contained lead at some point, type of thing that basically leaches out of the fittings, and that's why we test for it.
Thank you.
Okay. 6.1, notice of motion or motions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'm going to be calling for a vote to reconsider the discussion concerning the boardwalk. And should I state my reasons now?
No, I think do
Is it
you
just
need a seconder at this point? Yeah. We need a seconder at this point. Councillor Williams. Okay, so the discussion is not about the boardwalk. The discussion is, should we reconsider the vote? And generally it's based on what new information have we learned since our last conversation that would influence your decision to make this? So, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. I'm calling for the reconsideration.
My apologies and sorry to interrupt. Just a procedure question here. Are we doing this now or does that have to be provided for a subsequent meeting or because it happened in this meeting, we're allowed to do it? Thank you very much for answering my question. I apologize for interrupting. Thank you.
I'm calling for a vote to reconsider. And the threshold usually is new information that's come to light. One of the questions that had been asked, both myself and the director, was concerning what had been presented to the Accessibility Committee. Having had the opportunity to pull up what was presented January 11th of 2024, what was presented by Blue Plan Engineering was effectively a plan of the proposed boardwalk, which used wood and or plastic. It states composite. So that's what was presented to the Accessibility Committee. One, for the purposes of transparency, I had thought it was concrete. I was mistaken. I think it's quite appropriate and proper to bring that to light because that information may very well change the views of some. It has changed my view. And on that premise, I think it's appropriate for me to call the vote to reconsider.
Are there any other questions, debate regarding the issue of reconsidering the motion? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to reconsider. I'm sorry, what was the to reconsider the vote regarding the boardwalk surface material. All in favor?
Requires 6.
Yeah, requires 2/3. It's not a simple majority.
This is a vote to
This
consider.
is just a vote to reconsider the motion. This is not changing the outcome of the original motion. It's just to reconsider. So all in favor of reconsidering the motion on the boardwalk, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and any opposed? And that vote carried. All right, so now we're going back to, it is the original. So the motion that we passed was we approved stamped concrete.
Right.
So the motion that we are reconsidering is that council approves stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk that resembles a wooden boardwalk.
Previous motion was defeated, right?
Yeah, 2-part.
No, it was a two-parter. So
It was a two-parter.
They defeated the composite. So she's asking for it to be reconsidered, which was the decision, which was the concrete. And that was approved.
Yeah.
The concrete.
The concrete motion. So we had passed a motion that approved stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk. Discussion? You're going to get one comment or question each, and we're not going to go any farther than that. Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have a question for Deputy Mayor. You had just a point of clarification. You had said just now that the reason you wanted to reconsider is because you clarified that the proposal that was presented to the Accessibility Committee was the proposal for a composite. A wood or composite, yes, yeah, sorry, a non-concrete one, a wood or composite one. And I just wanted to verify, my understanding is that the outcome of that was that the Accessibility Committee was acceptable or accepting of that proposal.
That's right. So concrete wasn't presented as an option.
Councillor Stewart, please.
So it was, through you, Mayor, it was presented. What was your recommendation from the committee then?
So, Councillor, through you, Mayor, it was presented as either going to be wood or composite, and that was accepted or received, I guess. I don't know if there was any sort of acceptance. But what wasn't presented to the committee was the option of concrete. So I think that's a distinguishable difference as to what the committee thought it would be going ahead on.
So you didn't make any recommendation back to the council, wood or composite? I know concrete wasn't, but you didn't make any recommendation back to us?
No, and I think from recollection, it was left in the hands of, there'd be further discussions generally about the details concerning the material to be used. But at that stage, I don't believe that concrete had been, it hadn't been proposed.
Okay, so Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, this isn't part of the motion, but I'm just going to state that my preference remains wood. And is there an opportunity to consider a combination of concrete in the parking area with wood on the existing boardwalk? Or is that not even on the table?
The motion that we are dealing with talks about the approval of stamped concrete as the preferred surface. Nothing to do with wood or combination or anything at that point. This is the motion we're dealing with. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I think my question might be similar, just around process. So if this is voted down, then does someone have to bring back the composite one to vote or another one to vote? Because if this is turned down, then we don't have anything.
Staff has asked for direction this evening to provide, to give them a path forward, material to make the boardwalk with.
Okay, so just so that we are all understanding what's going on. So first of all, you had a motion to approve composite surfing with concrete parking entrances. You defeated that. So then you approved stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk that resembles a wooden boardwalk. So that's what the motion that's for reconsideration right now is that one. So you cannot go back to composite surfacing for the boardwalk with concrete parking entrances because you've already defeated that. Unless somebody moves for a motion for reconsideration for that one.
So basically, that's what we're undoing, unraveling, repealing the motions that we have made. And this is the process by which council does that. So we have a motion on the floor to reconsider our decision to approve stamped concrete. So all this would be, yeah, so this is actually the motion now. So do we present this motion as it was before? Yeah. So I would like to ask you to vote on the motion that council approved stamped concrete as the preferred surface material for the boardwalk. All in favor? Any opposed? So that's defeated. All right, so at this point, we have no material. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Quick, say it now.
Guess what? We have wooden boardwalk now.
No, at this point, we have nothing. We have no direction to staff whatsoever.
Well done.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. This is a procedural question. Are we allowed to introduce a new motion such as stamped concrete around the parking areas and wood in the other areas? I'd like to raise that motion, please.
So we have a motion on the floor that the boardwalk would be made out of pressure treated wood, I expect, with concrete parking entrances. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hinchberger, discussion, please. Councillor Williams?
Thank you through you. The current boardwalk is made of wood, correct? How old is it?
Through you, I can tell you the original section was constructed in 1991. I can't tell you if that original construction was enhanced. The second construction was in 1994, which I believe aligns well when the dune grasses were planted, and they were probably planted because there was sand all over the boardwalk.
Do we know how, so would the lifespan of a wood boardwalk be 25, 30 years? Do we know?
Through you, what I can't tell you is how long components of that were replaced. The boardwalk on the north side was planted after that date, and we have done very little for improvements on that. However, it does not have the impact of sand migration.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just an amateur deck builder from time to time, according to code. Definitely according to code. So I just like to point out in here is, from my perspective, whether you're going with composite decking or pressure treated decking, we're only talking about the decking. The stuff below it is, in many cases, what's now has been affecting the lifespan of this one. And I imagine would be some form of pressure treated lumber rated for ground contact as well. One thing I would say is that although we've moved away from was one that's arsenic based to one that's infused with copper, but there's techniques now that didn't exist years ago, which now allow decks to last longer, treating the cut ends, using a pressure treated lumber that has a higher rating for ground contact. You often see now on the tops now, they'll use strips of membrane material that helps seal this. So I would say that my opinion is that a deck built now with new techniques that are used today would have at least the lifespan of the existing one.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. And I think that the wood actually does sound like a good option because a lot can change in the next 10 to 15 years, which surprises me because I was fully in the composite mind frame, but I was just, sorry, Jen, you're making me laugh. I apologize. Even with high sand migration, could we not expect at least a 10 to 15 year life expectancy out of wood, even with high sand migrations?
Probably. The difference between your deck and the boardwalk is that you're not taking a tractor with a sweeper over your deck once a week or a trackless. So, that's the difference between them, which certainly shortens the life expectancy of them. I'm not a deck expert by any means, but I can share with you what we do to maintain the existing boardwalk right now.
Yes,
Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one bit of follow-up information. Maybe the director or the manager knows this, but certainly on the north side of the harbor, and I know we're not talking about this, that deck over there is built on essentially precast pier blocks sitting on the ground. And if the one, I'm imagining that the one that we're talking about replacing was similarly constructed. But I'm not anticipating as well, when we talk about longevity, that we're going to propose, if we went with a pressure treated deck or a composite deck, that we would be using the same simple off the shelf from Rona precast blocks. We'd be looking at either concrete piers in the ground or possibly even helical piers to go in. Is that correct?
Councillor Williams, we're gonna limit the questions.
Thank you through you. this probably isn't, I don't know if this is a fair question, but in the budget, we approved 750,000 for a boardwalk for this year, and the projections were 75,000 for 2026 and 800,000 for 2027. 750 this year. Do you have any idea the difference between the concrete, which I think was this quote for, and wood? Like, we're talking like 30%, 50%, same.
Through you, I'm not prepared to answer that question tonight. I simply don't have that answer.
Through the chair, I guess it's not actually a question. My preference would be screw piles with composite, so I'm gonna vote no on this.
So we have a motion on the floor to construct the boardwalk of wood with concrete parking entrances. No. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Anyone opposed? And that was carried. Okay. We move on to the resolution regarding the area-specific development charge background study. We need a mover and seconder that the area-specific development charges background study, Highway 9 and 21, prepared by Hampson Consulting Limited and dated January 24, 2025, is hereby approved, and that the increase in the need for services attributable to the anticipated development as contemplated in the area-specific development charges background study dated January 24, 2025, including any capital costs, will be met by updating the capital budget and forecast for the municipality of Kincardine where appropriate, and that having considered the submissions received at the public meeting held on February 26, 2025 in connection with the area-specific development charges background study and the proposed bylaw, council hereby determines that no further public meeting under section 12 of the Development Charges Act is necessary with respect to the said area-specific development charges background study or bylaw, and that having considered the use of more than one development charge bylaw to reflect different needs for services in different areas, also known as area rating or area-specific development charges, council hereby determines that for the services and associated infrastructure proposed to be funded by development charges under this bylaw, that it is fair and reasonable that the charges be calculated on an area-specific basis. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. Discussion. Councillor Kavanaugh, and to say? Sure. Further questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Municipality of Kincardine 921 Business Park Area Specific Development Charges Bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the Municipality of Kincardine 921 Business Park Area Specific Development Charge Bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-034, moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Parkland Dedication Amendment Bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the Parkland Dedication Amendment Bylaw be deemed to be read first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2025-35, moved by councillors Steinhoff, Gray, and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Community Emergency Preparedness Grant Fund Transfer Payment Agreement. We need a mover and seconder that the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant 2024-25 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-36, moved by councillors Steinhoff, Gray, and Williams. All in favor? That's carried. We need a mover and seconder that the appointment bylaw enforcement regarding municipal support services 2025 bylaw to be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-37, moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Steinhoff, Gray. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. We need a mover and seconder that only one bylaw is hereby read first, the second, third time, finally passed March 2025, and that would be to award the 2025 granular A tender. The other two we have deferred or amended or something. All Hinchberger and Kavanaugh, all in favor? That's carried. The consent agenda. Once again, routine enacted in one motion unless you have an item that you would like to withdraw for consideration either tonight or a subsequent meeting. So we need a mover and seconder that council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated March 26, 2025, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by councillors, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Blackwell. All in favor? That's carried. General announcements. Councillor Blackwell. None. Zero. Oh, shoot. Yep.
Thank you. Through you, I know it's been quiet at this part of the agenda without me. I have 30 announcements. I'll try and get them quickly. First, this may have been mentioned already at a prior meeting. I apologize if it was. I wanted to congratulate the 6 residents of Kincardine who were awarded a King Charles III Coronation Medal by MPP Ben Lobb. First and foremost was our late great colleague Doug Kennedy, as well as Chandra Tapathi, Dr. Marine, Odea Offenarm, Laszlo Sampa, Stephen Travale, and Andrew Dykman. I also want to acknowledge Brooke Thomas, who won a bronze medal for figure skating representing Canada at the Special Olympic World Winter Games. And lastly, while I have been on leave, I wanted to thank the community and my colleagues for their support. It is truly a great community that we live in. I've seen it personally. I know my neighbors have seen it personally while they are dealing with a great loss as well. And so just a note of appreciation for me for that.
Councillor Pranger, please.
I have no announcements.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you. Through your mayor, I would just like to say, Councillor Blackwell, it is a pleasure and to have you back at the table.
Deputy Mayor.
I just need to echo that. It's great to have you back, Beth.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
No announcements this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Thank you. No additional announcements today. And I agree. I'm glad you're back.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that myself and Councillor Stewart attended the politicians meeting hosted by the Bruce County and Grey County Federation of Agriculture on Saturday. And I just wanted to say it was a great event for me to be able to get up to date on the agriculture sector, particularly in the 2 counties. And really the commodities update was really great to kind of just get more insight into. And so I appreciate the opportunity for them to pull all the local politicians together to learn about the ag sector. So it's great.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, it was a great event. Thank you for mentioning it, Councillor Williams. I enjoyed it immensely. I recommend everyone in council at least go once a term. Anyways, just one general or 2 general announcement. One is that Tiverton Alliance are selling their chocolate bunnies once again for $6, and the proceeds are going to a very good cause. It's a Lucas campaign. If you want to know more details, just go on the Tiverton Alliance website. Also, within 5 or 6 days, we'll be closing the Mystic Gate. And it has not been a very successful, how would I put this politely? It's been a tough year for the local residents. It's been a lot of speeding and everything. We'll need to take a look at the results. But overall, it did save a lot of people, and a lot of people from having nervous breakdowns trying to get through, definitely when concession roads and highways are closed. But the speeding is still a matter of fact, a real problem, and we're going to have to figure out how to solve this, or the gate will remain closed. Thank you.
And just one for myself, there is a health and wellness symposium at the Davidson Center on April 5. Starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. And it's not municipally run. It is a number of vendors that are privately organized. So it is a little different thing. CAO.
No announcements this evening.
Okay, so we need a mover and seconder that the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the municipality of Kincardine be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally pass the number to bylaw 2025-41. Inchberger and Blackwell, all in favor, that's carried, and we adjourn at 7:42 by Steinhoff, Gray, and Deputy Mayor. All in favor, and we're gonna go home. Thank you to staff for being